My name is Elise Calder, 42 years old. Christmas at my parents' house has a script. The universe refuses to stop staging. Dry turkey, overcooked green beans, and my sister Dana arriving late with armfuls of gifts she didn't pay for and opinions nobody asked to unwrap. Trent trailed behind her in a jacket that wanted to be rich. The girls, Savannah at 14, Zoe at 12, already filming the room with their eyes, looking for something to judge. I brought wine, patience, and the practiced smile of a woman who has learned how to turn hurt into weather. Notice it, dress for it, keep moving. Dinner began. Mom carved a bird that died twice. Dad sipped his wine like a permission slip for silence. And Dana launched into a monologue about Trent's new startup, flavored vape filters for meditation. I counted the seconds until someone said, disruption. Savannah rolled her eyes at Grace. Zoe posed her fork like a wand. Somewhere between the mashed potatoes and Dana's suggestion that I freeze my eggs, or, just freeze your standards, Zoe looked up from her phone and asked, too loud for the room we were in, Mom says you'll never have a real family. The sentence landed with the soft thud of a knife on cheap cutting board. Mom went pale. Savannah giggled. Dana didn't even glance at me. She kept cutting her turkey and said, almost fondly, kids repeat everything, don't they? Dad, my father, who once pitched tents with me under skies that felt like we'd borrowed them, nodded as if Zoe had said something brave. The air folded. I smiled. I helped clear plates, stacked dessert forks, and told Mom the cranberry sauce was perfect. At the door, I hugged everyone like I didn't remember the shape of their silence. Outside, Zoe snapped a photo of me by my car and whispered to Savannah, watch, she's going to cry in her convertible. I didn't. I drove home through soft snow and streetlights, poured a scotch that tasted like Resolve, and opened my laptop. Click. Netflix, remove Dana's household. Click. Hulu, sign out all devices. Click. Disney Plus, good night, princesses. Click. Spotify Family Plan, family revised. Click. Amazon Prime, the cart is now a mirror. Click. Lake House router. New password no one in that house would guess. Wi-Fi renamed to Family Sham. I blocked Dana's number. Closed the laptop. Slept like a person who'd finally decided not to swallow glass to keep the peace. By morning, 36 missed calls, 4 voicemails from Dana, 3 from Trent, 2 from Mom, a chorus line of texts from Savannah calling me extra with a crying laugh emoji that did not invite laughter. On the 37th ring, I answered. Dana didn't say hello. Why are you so selfish? It wasn't a question, it was a worldview. I looked out my window at a city that didn't care and loved me for it. I'm done, I said. You, Trent, and your kids are not my responsibility. I won't bankroll your mess while you mock the hands that keep your lights on. You're punishing my daughters because you're bitter, she snapped. That's insane. I'm declining to fund them while they treat me like a punchline, I said. Tell Zoe she was right. I may never have a real family by your definition. What I do have is real money I earned, real peace I keep, and real boundaries I'm enforcing. You always thought you were better than us, she hissed. Enjoy being alone forever. I've been enjoying it, I said, and hung up. The silence that followed had weight. That version of me, the one who fixed cracked iPads at midnight, who slipped her card to the cashier when Trent's account unexpectedly overdrafted, who swallowed every dinner table dig because keeping the peace was piety. She died the second Zoe weaponized a sentence, and the adults set it down carefully next to the gravy. By Tuesday, Dana escalated to performance art, a 4-paragraph text that started with wow and ended with blocked, followed by a photo of Zoe crying captioned, happy now? Like I'd snatched oxygen, not login credentials. I didn't reply. A funny truth drifted into the space she used to fill. When you stop defending yourself, people begin to notice the pattern you've been absorbing. Aunt Lila called, just to check in, and somehow said more in her pauses than Dana had with all her shouting. My cousin Rachel DM'd, whatever this is, you've been covering for them for years. It turns out silence, handled properly, is a confession you don't have to write. Mid-January, Trent texted, not an apology. The word bro appeared like an oil slick at the top of my screen. Hey, bro, totally get where you're coming from. Any chance you could just hook the girls up with Disney Plus again? They're struggling. Over a streaming service. I left him on red because sometimes the most loving thing you can give a drowning person is a shoreline they can't exploit. Mom tried next. At first it was soft, like checking the temperature of a fever. Then the asks grew teeth. The high road. Set an example. They're having a rough time. That's when the full picture spilled. The meditation vape venture had already imploded. Trent had taken a $20,000 loan against the house without telling Dana. They were 3 months behind on the mortgage. The Wi-Fi was cut. Savannah picked up weekend shifts at a smoothie place. Zoe flagged herself as a tutor to keep her phone line alive. Dana posted their living room furniture on Marketplace with the caption, "Minimalist Reset." I remembered Savannah's story weeks earlier, my convertible, screenshotted, with, "Some people think money makes them better than others." She tagged me. I replied once. "Some people think using others makes them untouchable." She deleted it in less than 2 minutes. Cowardice is fast. By February, Dana's voice changed. "I don't want to fight anymore," she said on a call I didn't plan to pick up. "Things are hard. I miss you. The girls miss you." "What do you miss?" I asked. Silence. The kind where a person realizes they don't have a good answer. She didn't miss me. She missed the net. "I wish you well," I said. "If you want me in your life, change it. Not with captions. With conduct. Respect first, consistency next, time after that." She started to say my name, soft as bait. I hung up. That week, I booked Aspen, drove with the top down. The air was glass and clean. My phone lit up only with people I wanted to hear from. Dana's life began to crack in the exact places my money used to grout. Not because I destroyed it, but because I stopped holding it together. And that, I thought, is what boundaries sound like when they click into place. Not a slam. A lock. It took less than 2 weeks for Dana to start her favorite sport, triangulation. First came the aunt calls. "Family's too short for grudges," Aunt Lila chirped, though her voice had that careful tilt, the one that meant she knew something but wasn't supposed to. Then came the cousin DMs. "Whatever this is, you guys should talk it out." Translation. Dana's already rewritten the story. According to her, I wasn't a woman setting boundaries. I was a bitter, lonely sister who'd finally snapped. She told them I'd ruined Christmas because I couldn't stand seeing her perfect family. I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't need to. Because silence, when you've spent years buying the illusion of harmony, becomes its own kind of spotlight. People start to see what you've been subsidizing. By mid-January, I could tell the silence was doing its work. Little fractures were showing. Mom started calling every morning. First gentle check-ins, then subtle nudges. "You could be the bigger person," she'd say. "Dana's been under a lot of stress." I almost laughed. Stress was her baseline. Manipulation was her oxygen. Then Mom slipped. She always does when she's carrying someone else's secrets. "Trent's business hit a snag," she said, voice low. Translation, it's on fire. Turns out the meditation vape company had folded before it even launched. Trent had taken out a second loan on their house, 20 grand, without telling Dana. Now they were 3 months behind on payments, the Wi-Fi had been cut off for a week, and Savannah had started working weekends at a smoothie shop to pay her phone bill. Zoe was tutoring online. Dana was listing furniture on Facebook Marketplace, claiming they were redecorating. "Maybe just help them a little," Mom said softly. "They're having a rough time." "Rough," I repeated. They mocked me for not having a family, Mom. I stopped paying for their Disney Plus, not their oxygen. She sighed. "You've always been the practical one, but she's still your sister." "She's a 40-year-old woman," I said. "Sisters stop counting when the invoices start." Then Trent messaged me directly. Not to apologize, of course. His texts always carried that weird mix of fake humility and desperation. "Hey, totally get it, Elise. I know things got tense. Just wondering if you could hook the girls up with Disney Plus again? They're really struggling without it." Struggling. Like streaming deprivation was a humanitarian crisis. I stared at the message for a full minute before leaving him on read. Because nothing says "I'm done funding your delusion" like the blue checkmark of acknowledgement followed by silence. The next week, I noticed Dana's new project, Public Victimhood. Her Facebook feed turned into a theater of self-pity, cryptic quotes about toxic people who confuse generosity with control, selfies captioned "smiling through the pain," and photos of Zoe looking sad under captions like "raising strong girls through hard times." No mention of how those hard times started. When sympathy poured in from friends who didn't know the story, I just watched. The more she posted, the more transparent she became. Even people in the comments started to ask, "Where's Trent?" She never replied. Then, one afternoon, my work phone rang. The caller ID said Trent. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Elise," he said, sounding tired. "Can we talk?" "Make it quick." "I just wanted to say, I get it," he said. "We leaned on you too much. I won't deny it. I know we've been leeches." My stomach dropped. That was not the script I expected. He hesitated. "Dana's falling apart. The girls are confused. I'm doing everything I can, but if you let her drown completely, she won't come back from it." I looked out my office window at the city skyline, glittering and indifferent. "Neither did I said quietly. And then I hung up. 3 days later, Mom called. Her voice was brittle, like she'd been crying. "Dana's applying for food assistance," she said. "Their mortgage lender sent a foreclosure notice. Savannah's embarrassed to go to school. Trent's been asking the neighbors for work." I listened without interrupting. "She's not eating," Mom whispered. "She cries every night." I waited for her to stop, then asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since Christmas. "Do you remember when Zoe said I'd never have a real family and no one corrected her?" The line went silent. Finally, Mom said, "I remember, and I'm sorry I didn't say something." "That's the only apology I needed," I said, and ended the call. That weekend, I found something unexpected in my mailbox. A handwritten letter, no return address, no postage, just folded in half. It was from Savannah. Her handwriting was shaky, but careful. She wrote that she finally understood why I'd cut them off, that her mom had told them for years I was lonely, selfish, and weird with money. That she believed it because she never saw me fight back. She said she was sorry. She didn't excuse it. She didn't ask for anything. She just wrote, "If we ever get the chance to earn you back, I'll be first in line." I read it twice, then tucked it into the drawer beside my bed. Not forgiven, not forgotten. Just saved. A week later, Dana's next move arrived on my doorstep. Not in words, but in objects. The front desk called to say someone had dropped off a small brown box for me. Inside were old photographs, real ones, printed on glossy paper. Family beach trips, birthday cakes, one of me holding Savannah and Zoe when they were toddlers. Another of me and Dana sitting on the curb outside our parents' house, popsicles in hand, sunburned and laughing. Taped to the lid was a sticky note in Dana's handwriting. "Didn't know you kept these. Didn't know I'd want them back someday." No apology, no explanation, just that. I stared at the note for a long time. Part of me thought it was another play, sentimental manipulation dressed as surrender. But another part of me wondered if maybe, finally, she was realizing what she'd done. Still, I didn't call, because apologies without accountability are just punctuation on the same sentence. Instead, I set the box aside next to Savannah's letter. 2 pieces of paper, 2 women learning, slowly, that I wasn't coming back just because they wanted me to. And in that quiet, the silence that had once felt like war began to sound a little bit like peace. The photos sat on my dining table for 2 days, quietly haunting the room. Every time I passed them, I felt the ghosts of summers I used to think meant something. The kind of memories you assume are permanent, until you realize nostalgia is just the trick of remembering without context. I didn't reach out, but that box lingered like a whisper I couldn't shut off. So on Sunday morning, I drove by their house. First time in years. From the street, I almost didn't recognize it. The paint had dulled to the color of defeat. The porch railing sagged like an apology half-spoken, and the yard looked wild, uncut. In the center of the grass stood a warped wooden sign, hand-painted in red, "For sale by owner." No realtor, no agency, just desperation. That night, I found the listing online. The photos were grainy. The price was too low, a plea disguised as a deal. The caption said, "Motivated seller, all reasonable offers considered." So I made one. Cash. No inspection. No contingencies. I didn't even step inside. I bought it because I could. Not to live in it, not to flip it, but because it had always been the one thing Dana used to define her worth. The house, her castle, the proof she'd won at life. Now it was mine. 3 days after the sale closed, I had the locks changed. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Mom. Then, on the 4th night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I knew who it was before I answered. Her voice was flat, all the venom gone, replaced with exhaustion. "You bought our house?" I said nothing. "Why?" she asked. The silence on my end stretched long enough for her to fill it with her own guilt. When I still didn't answer, she said quietly, "We don't have anywhere to go." I finally spoke. I can give you the number of a property manager I trust. You can talk to him about rentals, same as anyone else. Full market rate, no family discount. She didn't cry, didn't yell. She just said, okay, then hung up. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling, waiting for the guilt to come. It didn't. Because this wasn't revenge. This was balance. For years, she'd leaned on my stability, like it was a guarantee. Now, she'd learned what it felt like when the ground stopped catching her. Still, the quiet afterward was heavy, almost hollow. So when my phone buzzed again at midnight, I wasn't surprised. Subject line, I understand. It was an email from Dana. No message, just a single attachment, a PDF. Her letter. Typed, signed, dated. I opened it, expecting manipulation wrapped in sentimentality. But what I got was something else entirely. She wrote that she'd known for years how cruel she had been, but didn't care because cruelty was easier than humility. She admitted she'd used the girls as shields whenever someone tried to hold her accountable. That she told them I was selfish because it made her feel less guilty for being dependent. She confessed she used to comfort herself with the idea that I'd regret not having a family, that I'd end up alone and bitter, reaching out to her one day for help. Her exact words were, I thought I had the life you were missing out on. Now I see I just borrowed it, and I don't get to be angry at the bank for collecting. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't even ask me to reply. She just ended with, I won't ask you to fix what I broke, but I'll still try to deserve better than your silence. I closed the email and sat there in the dark, not angry, not vindicated, just still. Because for the first time in our lives, Dana had told the truth. And maybe that would have meant something a decade ago, but now, truth felt late. Like showing up to the wreck after the rescue's gone home. For 2 weeks, the house sat empty. I didn't rent it out, didn't clean it, didn't even drive by. I wanted it to breathe for a while, to sit in its own quiet and become a monument to every line crossed and every favor taken. Every your family, you'll understand. Now it was just a building. 4 walls, stripped of excuses. When people called asking if it was available, I said not yet, because it wasn't ready. Neither was I. Then, one morning, Trent texted. Just one line. She applied for a job at the diner near the highway. I read it 3 times, picturing Dana in one of those red aprons she used to mock when we were teenagers, rolling her eyes at waitresses because some people just don't aim high enough. Now, she'd be serving coffee to the kind of men who called her sweetheart without looking at her name tag. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel good either. I just felt the click of cause and effect. She'd spent years convincing herself the rules didn't apply to her. Now she was clocking in to learn they did. That weekend, a new message appeared. Savannah. She wanted to meet. Said she wouldn't blame me if I said no, but she wanted to talk. I almost ignored it. Then I thought about her letter, the shaky handwriting, the apology she never learned from her mother. So I agreed. We met at a park near her school. It was overcast, wind brushing the trees like something restless. She was sitting on a bench, hood up, earbuds hanging from her collar. When she saw me, she stood, no eye rolls, no attitude, just a quiet kind of shame that looked too old for 14. She handed me an envelope. Inside was another note. I used to think you were the weird aunt who didn't get life. Now I think you're the only one who ever did. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I don't expect you to forget, but if you ever decide we're allowed to earn you back, I'll be first in line. She didn't wait for me to answer. She just nodded once and walked away. No drama, no tears. Just truth, simple, small, and heavy enough to matter. I sat on that bench long after she left, reading the note over and over, because somewhere between her handwriting and the quiet, I realized something. Maybe this was never about punishment. Maybe it was about clarity. And maybe clarity was finally winning. That night, I made a decision. I called Dana. She answered on the second ring, her voice thin and cautious, like someone who'd forgotten what hope sounded like. I'm renovating the house, I said. I'll rent it out eventually, but not to you. Not to anyone you know. You can take what's left inside. No cost, no strings. A long silence, then softly. Thank you. It wasn't gratitude. It was exhaustion disguised as manners. Before she could hang up, I added, there's a reunion this spring at my place. Everyone's invited, but this time it'll be on my terms. She didn't ask what that meant. Maybe she already knew. Because for once, Dana didn't argue. She just said, okay. For the first time in years, I ended a call with her and didn't feel the need to check my bank balance afterward. And that was how I knew, finally, that the debt was paid. The reunion took place in late spring. The kind of afternoon that looks forgiving, even when the air still remembers winter. My backyard was calm, manicured, intentional. I'd hired a caterer who arrived early, Set everything just right. Food warm, glasses chilled, music low. No chaos, no last-minute phone calls. Everything about that day was the opposite of how Dana used to host. Her dinners were frantic, loud, and cluttered with people pretending they were happy. Mine was quiet, honest, and absolutely under control. By noon, the first guests trickled in. Mom and Dad, some cousins, a few extended relatives who hovered like diplomats in neutral territory. People hugged cautiously, voices tentative. No one mentioned the year-long family Cold War. They didn't have to. Then the sound of tires on gravel. A dented silver minivan pulled up at the edge of the drive. Dana stepped out first. She wasn't the woman I'd seen at Christmas. Her hair was plain, her makeup gone. The sharpness she'd always worn like jewelry had dulled into something else. Not sadness, not even shame. Just surrender. Trent climbed out behind her, older by a decade that had only taken 12 months to arrive. Savannah held the passenger door for Zoe, who shuffled out, arms crossed, avoiding everyone's gaze. They looked like a family written in lowercase letters now. And somehow that felt right. Dana hesitated by the gate, taking in the scene. The perfect yard, the tables draped in white linen, the scent of lemon and rosemary. I saw her swallow hard before walking toward me. "Thanks for letting us come," she said quietly. That was it. No speech, no pretense, just that one line. I nodded once, then turned back to the guests. The day unfolded gently. Small talk filled the air like cautious birds. People laughed softly, like they were afraid to startle the moment. Mom beamed too brightly. Dad poured wine for everyone twice, and Trent hovered at the edge of things, trying to look useful. Zoe stayed glued to her phone at first, but eventually started helping the caterers collect plates. Savannah offered to refill drinks, and when our eyes met, there was no defiance, only the awkwardness of a teenager trying to prove something wordlessly. Dana didn't hold court like she used to. She didn't interrupt, didn't brag, didn't need to be seen. She floated quietly between conversations, smiling small, like someone relearning a language she used to speak too loudly. For a moment, I caught her standing near the edge of the lawn, staring at the horizon like it was something she finally knew she couldn't own. When she noticed me watching, she smiled, barely. I didn't return it, but I didn't look away either. That was our truce. By sunset, the crowd began thinning. The cousins left with Tupperware, Mom fussed over leftovers, and laughter grew freer as the wine loosened the edges of old habits. Then it was just the five of us. Dana approached me, while Trent helped the girls load dishes into the van. She held an envelope in her hand. "No speech," she said quickly, maybe sensing my walls before I raised them. "Just this." I took it but didn't open it. "Dana." She stopped me. "Don't. Not today. Just thank you." Her voice broke slightly on the last word. She turned before I could respond. Savannah hugged me, fast, almost shyly, and whispered, "Thanks for not slamming the door all the way." Zoe just nodded, eyes wet but proud. Trent gave a quiet, "Take care of yourself," which I think in his language meant, "I'm sorry." Then they left. The sound of the minivan driving away was the cleanest silence I'd ever heard. Later that night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the envelope resting beside a half-empty glass of wine. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant crickets outside. When I finally opened it, I half expected manipulation disguised as remorse. Instead, it was simple, typed, honest. I know respect isn't automatic. I know I destroyed the bridge. I don't expect forgiveness. I poisoned my daughters against you because it made me feel less like I was failing. I'm trying to stop doing that now, not to win you back, but because I finally understand what it cost me. For years, I thought being loud made me right. Now I see how much quiet costs, and I'm willing to pay it. I'm sorry, Elise, for all of it. No performance, no guilt, just truth. I folded the letter neatly and placed it beside Savannah's first note and Dana's box of photographs. 3 pieces of paper, 3 attempts at redemption. It didn't make everything whole again. It didn't erase the years or the damage. But it made something else possible, stillness. Not forgiveness yet, not reconciliation, just stillness. And that was enough. A week later, I visited the old house, the one I'd bought, renovated, and left empty. The new paint gleamed soft white in the afternoon sun. The yard was trimmed. The porch railing was steady again. For the first time, it looked like a place that belonged to no one's ego. As I locked the door behind me, I realized I didn't feel anger anymore, or guilt, or even pride. Just closure. For years, I'd been the quiet foundation under a house built on entitlement. Now the foundation stood alone, and the house, well, it was finally stable because I'd stopped holding it up. That night, I lit a candle and sat by the window. I thought about the last line of Dana's letter, about how quiet costs, and how she was finally willing to pay it. I smiled to myself, because maybe we were both finally learning that same lesson. Some debts aren't financial. They're emotional, generational, invisible. And the only way to clear them is to stop pretending someone else will. No, they're not back in my life. But the door isn't sealed shut anymore either. It's cracked, just enough for light to pass through. But it stays on my terms. Always on my terms.